Hey, Security Token Market, welcome back to the Digital Assets and Securities Conference. I'm joined here by Alan Konevsky, the interim CEO and Chief Legal Officer of tZERO. Alan, thanks so much for being here.
Kyle, delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I'm really excited to dive into it today. tZERO, it's a market leader, driven the industry adoption for years now with all of the different tokens you've brought to market. And I want to just kick it off by getting to know you a little bit. And based off of your legal expertise and that background, can we talk about tokenization and the effects that could have on the securities markets?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think the future of self-regulating, natively digital securities that are custody traded, recorded on a single technology layer where investors can interact with those securities and related products directly without the frictions, the costs, the delays that come with dealing with layers of traditional securities industry intermediaries is very exciting. Again, it's more inclusive, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more transparent. And so digital securities are, excite me personally. I think it's a critical mission for us. Now, coming into an industry that is highly regulated, has always been highly regulated, that journey is very incremental, very iterative, very much influenced by the pace of regulatory innovation. Now, we tZERO have been long-standing players, as you noted, and have been focused on step-by-step compliant innovation. And we're prepared to play the long game here. But I think the benefits, both for issuers, for investors, for regulators in terms of speed, compliance, transparency, regulatory focus that comes with digitally native, hard-coded securities is very exciting.
So you mentioned there that there's a lot of efficiencies in this process, right? We're talking tZERO settlement and a lot of these different pieces that improve these efficiencies. But there are quite a few firms in the legacy system that build their businesses around these processes. So do you feel that this is something that will be a threat to some of those traditional financial services, or is it something that will allow them to upgrade and be more efficient in the services that they provide?
It'll allow them to grow and innovate. I think I would analogize it to some of the conversations that are happening in the banking sector with open banking and opening up access to traditional big banks customers for fintechs and innovative products and services that they bring. So traditional players are going to continue to have a role in this ecosystem. As I said, this is step-by-step, incremental, iterative. The legacy and the new will coexist for a long period of time, and so this is really going to be synergistic.
How long have you worked with tZERO?
So I've been at tZERO for 3 years. Before tZERO, I came with a 20-year career at Goldman Sachs, MasterCard, and Sullivan & Cromwell, really dealing with financial services and other highly regulated industries, capital markets, technology, strategy. So for me, looking at this kind of this permanent evolution in how securities are traded is a really exciting place to be at tZERO.
I totally agree, and I think that's an interesting segue. You've been there for 3 years, and certainly the company has been through a lot in that period. How have you seen the direction and goals of the company change and evolve over that period, both in terms internally as well as externally with compliance and the like?
Yeah, look, I think the key DNA of tZERO of being focused on innovating in this industry in a compliant way. We started with, we're going to touch securities, and we're going to touch securities in a compliant way, and we're going to operate an ATS, and we're going to add a retail broker-dealer to it, and we're going to add a regulated crypto business to it. That DNA hasn't changed. How we think about our place in the consumer sector and in the B2B sector has been kind of a refined proposition where we're looking to solve the liquidity problem with private assets.
Right.
Private securities liquidity is broken, pre-blockchain, post-blockchain. And so what we're doing to fix it, to provide continuous automated trading environment and use blockchain in a way that can be brought quicker to market than in the public markets that take longer, to your point, because of the big players to reform, is exciting for us. Adding onto it cryptocurrencies, adding onto it traditional stocks, combining that with a holistic user experience that we're going to be unrolling later in Q4. And then from a B2B perspective, working with issuers on tokenization services, working with other broker-dealers to give them access to our ATS, identifying use cases for our routing technology for crypto. That industry is changing, including from a regulatory perspective, and so is very exciting for us, and so that direction has grown organically out of the direction where tZERO has been focusing on, I think.
I think that's insightful, and now I'd like to pivot the conversation into what I'm sure most of our viewers and listeners may want to talk about. That's assets, right?
Yes.
Where people we're talking about traders. Obviously, you've pioneered this idea of the retail trading of private securities, which is a fascinating development in this market. And so we'll start with some of the listed assets that you have, and the most recent listing, Exodus, was pretty groundbreaking, both because it's a tokenized equity that's a private company, but they pioneered the $75 million cap for a Reg A plus offering. What do you think that means for private capital markets, and is this a potential great opportunity for other issuers to follow suit?
Yeah, we think Exodus was a very significant event in the industry, and we're very grateful to Exodus and its investors for putting their trust with tZERO. Exodus using Regulation A+ to raise capital, the $75 million that you mentioned, is a very innovative path that we think more issuers will follow. One of the benefits of that, of using that regulatory track, is that those securities are immediately freely transferable. They don't have to season under regulations to trade. And it's an exciting thing for investors because they have path to liquidity optionality right away. It's obviously very important to us as a liquidity venue. So Exodus is also important because they're a crypto wallet operator, and so there's a lot of kind of firsts there and a lot of precedents and a lot of examples that we're using to advance conversations with other folks in the industry. And look, it was the fourth asset on our ATS, and it's, as you said, is an assets business. My priority when I wake up and go to sleep are the number of assets we have on ATS and continuing to grow that, and we've talked about that earlier. Exodus was an important event, but there needs to be a lot more of that.
I totally agree. We've talked about this before, and bringing that volume, bringing that liquidity is only so good if there's not a lot of things to trade. So this is another interesting conversation, is the American Films opportunity with the OTC markets. Can you talk a little bit about this regulatory update to the OTC markets that's creating this potential opportunity for digital ATSs to provide a different liquidity option?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the rule change that effectively required companies to make certain public disclosure available in a manner that the ATS, where they're quoted for fines appropriate, or otherwise potentially risk losing the ability for certain of their investors, certainly insiders and affiliates, to have access to continuous automated liquidity is very important. And so it was either pivot or potentially go dark for the investors. And we're delighted to be able to provide that service to those customers and their investors. And I think it will continue to be a very important asset class for us, alongside with innovative companies like Exodus that you've talked about, alongside seasoned late-stage private companies that are looking to provide liquidity to their deep cap table, alongside real estate projects and other securities that we're looking to bring to the market.
Yeah, you mentioned real estate. I mean, certainly here at the conference, we've spoken with many other real estate issuers that are looking to explore tokenization. Do you see the commercial real estate properties that pay a fixed interest rate as a potential strong opportunity for the ATS, or is it more fund-style products that would be better suited?
Look, folks ask that question, and I usually say, well, it's sort of analogous to saying, well, who can drive an electric car, right? Is it only short people or tall people, right? People with hair, people with no hair. The answer is anyone can. And that's the same thing for us, right? We are asset agnostic. It has to be a security. It has to be a good security. Compliance is key. It has to provide good periodic disclosure to investors. It has to pass our due diligence standard. Beyond that, and sticking to the real estate sector, whether it's a portfolio of residential real estate assets, whether it's commercial real estate, whether it's an equity security, whether it's a fixed income security that pays a certain set return. That's really a structuring issue, and it's up to the issuer and its investors. And I think we're delighted and excited to provide secondary liquidity for a range of these types of instruments.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And from a liquidity perspective, certainly one side of it is bringing strong assets to market. I think that this OTC opportunity could be a great one, as well as some of these other innovative products through A+ and others. But then there's the other side of it, that's the investor liquidity. I know that there was a period of time where it was almost weekly or monthly that tZERO was releasing new partnerships with brokers that were onboarding onto the platform. The question I have is around international investors as well. How many is that a focus as well, to increase the opportunity for interoperability between any jurisdiction to be able to participate?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, we have set up a framework in place that allows us to handle investors from almost 50 jurisdictions and handle them in a way that's compliant with laws of those countries, compliant with U.S. regulations, and we're proud of that. As we think about expanding our international footprint and taking a more active role in a particular country, securities industry, as you know, is very fragmented, geographically very balkanized. At each border, you leave one set of laws and come into a different set of laws. As we think about kind of DeFi and blockchain and how that's going to bring harmonization and cross-border functionality, we look forward to that point in time. But securities industry is fragmented and balkanized, and that's probably going to continue to be the case for the near to medium term. And so as we look to do that, and we come into a jurisdiction where you need local presence, you need a local partnership in order to have more of an active relationship, active engagement with particular investors. That'll be driven by the business case, by the use case, and we'll look at an ROI of the cost of doing that, of localizing in a particular jurisdiction. But as of now, there's almost 50 jurisdictions where we can accommodate investors, certainly on reverse inquiry basis, that we think is exciting. And I think beyond that, to the broader question about liquidity, this is a supply and demand ecosystem. We talked about supply, demand is critical. What's a relationship between the two? I kind of think back, and maybe I'm dating myself, that no one really walked around in sort of 1998 saying, gee, I wish I had a smartphone.
Right.
Smartphones showed up, Apple brought them out, everyone wanted them.
Right.
And so in my mind, supply drives demand, which is why we talked about adding more assets on the security side, on the crypto side. But I also think there's a virtuous kind of cycle between supply and demand. As we add more assets, their existing investors come with them, more eyeballs on existing assets, and so on. So as well as organic growth in terms of our broker-dealers marketing, both our broker-dealer and broker-dealer subscribers to our ATS marketing their services.
And you just mentioned crypto. Is the crypto side of your business, do you see that as a kind of a gateway into the security token side of the business, or do you see that as something that could eventually drive a significant portion of the revenue generated by the tZERO platform?
I think it's both. I think in order for it to be successful, it has to be a good standalone crypto product offering. The crypto industry has been changing, is changing. Regulation is a hot topic in this space, and both in terms of assets and product types and how they're traded, and we want to have a competitive standalone crypto offering. We also want it to be a very kind of synergistic, adjacent business to our private securities business. they have to sit in separate entities. That's the law. Broker-dealers do securities. Money services businesses do crypto. We're looking forward to bringing out a holistic, unified user experience that allows folks to to trade both asset types through a combined web and app-based experience that makes the UX seamless and easy, while the two businesses are obviously segregated functionally and from a regulatory perspective behind the scenes. So it kind of has to work as both.
Which cryptos are currently tradable on the app?
So we have today announced that we're adding 5 more cryptos to our app.
Oh, great.
And that's, and that is a really exciting development. We both look at sort of cryptos that kind of that have demand and volume behind them already. We started with Bitcoin and ETH and Raven, and then we added a handful, within the last month or so, and we're going to be adding 5 more as well, and as well as more innovative coins that pass our compliance test,
right.
But I think pose interesting products for our customers.
Yeah, well, important to be careful of that. We've seen some Wells notices being thrown around from some of these crypto platforms, so there's definitely some enhanced diligence that needs to happen.
Regulation and due diligence, are critical, whether you're looking at traditional instruments or evolving instruments.
So, are you tokenizing using the Ravencoin platform, or what's the relationship between tZERO and Ravencoin? Because that's a crypto that I don't know if everyone in the industry has heard about, but it's one that tZERO has pretty consistently been a supporter of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ravencoin is one of the cryptos that we offer on our platform, and we're excited to do that. We're excited to be, to have the Ravencoin community be a part of our business. As we look to tokenize on a range of technology protocols, we've talked about how the digital securities and the crypto industry is changing. That's true for technology as well.
Right.
We pride ourselves on being protocol agnostic, on blockchain agnostic, and so and we're able to accommodate a range of platforms. And in whatever shape Ravencoin and Raven becomes relevant to our environment, we'd welcome it beyond what we currently do now on the pure crypto side.
Right. Okay. Cool. And finally, to kind of wrap this up, there were a lot of discussions around tZERO from a fundraising perspective and dealing with the cash flow of the business. What can you say for investors in the tZERO token that are passionate about the platform that haven't heard a lot of news on that front? Where is the company at right now from a financial perspective, and what's the outlook on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. tZERO has had the great fortune of being supported by Overstock and Medici and now Pelion Venture Partners. We've also had the great fortune of having raised funds in our STO, and the terrific investors, very important investors that we have in our family. And as we think strategically about expanding our capital base, whether in terms of demographics and strategic investors, as well as just in terms of capital, we look forward to talking to the market, as those conversations, ripen to the point where it's appropriate.
Alan, thanks a lot for taking the time to share some of these answers. I think that many of the community has wondered about some of these things, and your transparency is very much welcomed. If people want to follow you or get more updates from the company, where would they do that?
Absolutely. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow tZERO. You can follow me on Twitter. And one of the things that I've been very focused on in my current interim role is ensuring that we have a rich communication flow with our community, including our customers, our investors. And as we just try to educate and grow, there's a lot of kind of mutual co-opetition that needs to happen. Education is a big part of what we're doing. We're not trying to fight in the shallow pool. We're trying to all turn the pool into an ocean.
We absolutely agree. We're on the same page with that. Alan, thanks a lot. I look forward to talking soon.
Thank you. Likewise.